Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, I'm talking to Tim Davies. Tim was an RAF fighter pilot and instructor. He taught fast jet. Was it fast jets? He taught at
That's right.
RAF Valley, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And he became one of the senior instructors there. Hey Tim, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, brilliant. Great, and thanks for coming on, agreeing to come on and do it. Like we talked about earlier, it's the same questions I ask everybody. Just where did you grow up? Why did you join the military? What did you do? Why did you leave? And what have you done since? So if you just want to give us a quick overview, or as long as you want, really, of where you grew up and why you joined the military.
Right. So I grew up in a naval town, Portsmouth. My father was a Royal Marine. He spent about a decade in the Royal Marines. Then he became a police officer. He was in Plymouth originally. They moved across to Hampshire. And he spent 37 years in the police. So I grew up in a naval town, surrounded by warships. And because of his background as a Royal Marine, I mean, the military was always in the family from my father's father, who was in the Welsh Guards, and my father's father's father, and it goes on. There was always someone in the military. So I don't know when I looked skywards, but I remember being in a garage in France with my father and him saying, "Do you want to buy a plastic screwdriver set?" I was 10. And then you could help me fix my motorcycle because he was a big motorcycle fan. But next to it was like this little paper airport set you could build. And I remember wanting that, much to his disappointment, I'm sure. And I think that was the first time I sort of thought about airplanes, because there wasn't really airplanes in the family apart from my grandfather, who was in Coastal Command and flew Catalinas and Sunderlands. Yeah. Apart from that, that was the only sort of flying, really. But I decided, I think, that I was either going to join the Royal Marines like my dad, or I was going to join the Air Force and fly. And I think everything, I joined Air Training Corps like you do. I'd been a cub, you know what I mean? And Air Training Corps, then it's very different Air Training Corps back than what Air Cadets is now. I don't think they do a great deal of flying now, unfortunately. But back then we used to go in gliders, little chipmunks, all sorts of stuff. You know, it was great. Go and visit things and go on little camps overseas in Cyprus and RAF Benson. So you really got a good idea of what the Air Force was about back in those days with the Air Training Corps. And then I grew up with all that, radio operator and air training, all that kind of stuff. It was really, really good actually to for when you're a young guy. And then what did I do? So I applied for a cadetship entrance into the Air Force, which I didn't get, but I got a flying scholarship. And back in those days, you got 30 hours. I'd been solo in a glider just the once. And so I did a flying scholarship of 30 hours up at Kidlington in a PA-28 that also the Duchess of York had flown before. I had a little ashtray in it. So I was just smoking that thing. I'm not sure I don't even know whether you're supposed to. When I was on these long Navex, getting lost, didn't know where the hell I was, right? I used to smoke and tap it out the little DV panel like that on the side, little window. I mean, I can't imagine I don't think that's legal now, is it? You get horrendously lost. Things you get up to, crazy. And then after that, I didn't do very well on my A-levels because I guess back then in Portsmouth, you get yourself into that kind of drugs culture and stuff. And I failed those. So I went to university doing H&D in aerospace manufacturing technology or something like that in University of West of England, and from there I managed to convert that into a degree, and I joined the Officer Training Corps, which is the army, of course, and did loads of soldiering, did something called the Canberra Patrol, long range reconnaissance stuff, and then I was going to go be a Marine, be a Marine. But the Marines weren't allowing people to fly jets at the time, and I still wanted to kind of keep that door open, and so I decided to join the Navy instead and put an application in for just direct pilot, because I'd done so badly in my bloody A-levels before. I wasn't the most academically gifted guy in the world. I decided to... What happened? So I decided to prioritise my exams, my finals, and I managed to get my Desmond Tutu result. But it meant I failed the Abbott interview board for the first time, which was like a day later, and with one of the lowest scores they'd seen. So they sent me away. So don't darken our door again for another year. I went back to Portsmouth. I was doing a job in... this is getting technical now, an iron beam deposition, which is Kodak spraying gold filament. I was just designing some weird shit. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But my dad said, well, look, give him a call after 6 months and ask if you can go back and do the average interview board again. This is the officer board, of course, in Gosport. And so I called him up. And you can't do this nowadays because you don't really have the careers offices like we used to have, you know what I mean? But I went to the careers office and I said, look, I'm really bored. I'm just doing this engineering job and it's rubbish. I want to join the Navy and fly airplanes. And the guys were like, well, you've been told you can't apply again for a year. And my dad said, phone him up. So I literally phoned up the Navy again and said, look, I'm living in Portsmouth, right? I'm in this really rubbish job. Can I just come down and do those tests again? If you've got a space, someone drops out. And they went, well, you're supposed to wait a year because, one result to the next one. And then about 2 weeks later, they phoned me up at home My dad got it, and they just said, if he can be here tomorrow, we can do it again. So I went down and I got one of the highest scores they got because I just hammered my knowledge on the Navy. Like all that time I was working in engineering, I'd hammered it, like learned about the Navy. So every question they asked me, I knew everything about everything. And that's a really great thing to do. Just really learn lots of stuff about the job you want to go for, obviously. So it shows enthusiasm. And then they accepted me as pilot. Yeah, and that's how I got into the Navy, to be fair. And I must admit, one thing I didn't really mention is every opportunity I had, I went to like the local airfield. I offered, this was Chichester, and I offered to wash their airplanes if I could get like 20-minute flight or something. Yeah. And in the end, I washed loads of airplanes and they flew me all the time. So I was getting this experience of being in like a little Cessna or being in like a little Piper. I didn't know what I was doing because I was only like 15 years old. I cycled out there in my own bucket and really got sort of involved. Wherever I saw aviation, I'd get involved in it. And I've still got the bug today, even though I'm not flying now. I'm teaching on a sim. I still got the bug. You know, it's never going to go away, right? And then, so yeah, I joined the Navy. That's what I did. Joined the Navy as a pilot back in.
Just go back to something you mentioned then about the careers officers. You're correct. You know, my son a few years back wanted to try and join the army, and it's not an easy route anymore. You know, and he got put off completely because of the way it was going to. You know, the time it was going to take.
Yeah,
there was, you know, like when I joined, I walked in the careers office. The one next door, it was a Navy one, and there was an Army one, and you could just like pick and choose. You know, which one you want to go in, and they're just not about, and they haven't got the staff in them that.
No, they haven't.
Kind of have the knowledge now either. You know, I mean, it's the civic company that's taken over and stuff like that. It's just, I think the recruitment for the armed forces now is just ridiculous.
It is sad.
It needs to be handed back to the services to be able to do it.
If you could afford the people to go and run them. The problem is, my big concern about all of this is about social mobility, because it used to be a great thing that the military, and people always said that's not the military's responsibility. It's like, I don't know what you really mean. Social mobility is where you may not have the academics. Like I never had the academics, right? I became the most senior fast jet flying instructor in the Royal Air Force. I got 2 E's and an N at A level. That's what I got, 2 E's and an N. I mean, smoking more drugs than probably kill most civilians. And I still became, because the Navy saw something in me. They went, all right. So the Navy back then. I know it's different now. Things changed, as you just said, right? Yeah. They can pick and choose, can't they? But back then, they were looking for the person over the academics. That's just how it was back then in the Navy. And they saw a guy that was grifting away, who'd failed really badly the first time he rocked up to the Navy. But I was told to go away and be a team player. And yet I'd just done long-range reconnaissance patrols, 8-man teams, 2 fire sections, LSW gunner I was, in the officer training corps. I couldn't be more of a team player. I joined Portsmouth Rugby Club to show them how much of a team player I was. In the 4th team, that's how you die, by the way. You know, play 4th team for Portsmouth. God dear, you know, arch enemies of Southampton and everything. But so when they look at it, they go, all right, the guy's making an effort. And that was the thing about social mobility with the military. And it doesn't seem to have that now, because young people, they just can't, not everyone. And I've said this before to someone and they said, no, you're wrong. I said it on my YouTube channel. I was like, no, you don't understand. You don't meet these people. Some young people don't have mobile phones. They can't download the forms and fill them in. They don't have a phone. They haven't got a phone contract. Not everyone does. Like there's a level of poverty in the United Kingdom that you don't even see. Like we don't even see it. You might see it on a TV program like EastEnders or whatever, and you may think you know about poverty in the UK. You don't know about poverty in the UK. I speak to some of these young people who are using a library computer, internet account with email to write to me to say, how do I get into the military? I can't, there's no careers office around me. I can't fill out any of these forms they send me because I can't. I've got to go to this library. I've got to get a bus after school. The whole thing, it represses people that we would normally really want in the military to move that. So I'm going on a rant now. That's the whole.
Welcome to.
Because I feel passionately about this, right? And this is what I say to people: we need to be able to make the military accessible for all people, and we just don't. It seems that it's almost like, I'm not saying it's intentional. I think the military can choose. And okay, here's the thing: with the military, that's smaller than Tesco's.
Yeah,
I mean that's another thing, isn't it? 70,000 people in the army, you can't deploy that. 75,000, you can't deploy that. So there's a lot wrong with it. I've been saying it for years, and I think now people are starting to wake up and understand it.
Well, I think because of Ukraine and the threat of Russia and stuff like that. But I mean, I've listened and spoke to a few people on that subject, and a lot of people have come to the conclusion it's like before the Second World War, the Expeditionary Force, the standing army is there to stop or to try and slow down what's coming. and then the rest of the larger army comes from conscription or people volunteering and stuff like that. The same it did in the First World War, the Second World War, all the way back to Napoleon type of thing. It's the standing army is there to just get battered, really. And I think currently the way it's standing, I don't even think I think we'd get rolled over. Hopefully not, and hopefully nothing ever happens. Nobody wants that. To wish that on anyone. But I think, when the Ukraine war started, we all looked at the Russians' tactics. They're coming in and thinking, "Christ, we was in BOR." I was in BOR in the 80s, and we were there. We knew we were there to just slow them down till everybody else could turn up. But the way they went into Ukraine, I think we'd kind of stood a really good chance, because we all knew their kit was shit. But it's the size of their army, the attrition that can come in and just push you over. It'll just roll straight over you in the end. Ukraine's putting up an hell of a fight to hold them back, but that's for a different podcast, really.
It is probably for a different podcast. The reason I say that, my views on Ukraine and Russia are quite contrarian. I've listened to Mearsheimer, and I understand. It depends how far back in history you want to go back to who's justified in doing what as well. And it's not really, as you know, it's a very asymmetric war. It's very much backed up by NATO supplying, obviously, munitions and training to Ukraine. It's not Ukrainians defending themselves against Russia. And Russia sees that part of Ukraine as Russian. And so it gets very complex very quickly. It's heavily nuanced.
Well, it is a weird one for you, right? On that exact subject there, right? I'd recently, on the old dating apps and stuff like that, swiped right on a lass, and we met and talked and stuff like that. And she's from Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
And, I said, "Oh, what do you think of Putin?" Hate him, obviously, because she'd left there. But I said, "Well, would you ever go back?" She goes, "Oh, no, we'll never go back." Because the town that she's from, Mariupol, was, I thought, "Oh, well, they invaded and a big fight." And she goes, "No, they just walked in one day, put the flag up. And everybody who lived there, apart from a handful, went, 'Yay, the Russians are here,' because they identify themselves as Russian. They don't want to go into Ukraine. They want to be Russian. So all the people who lived in that town and villages and them cities around that area, who didn't want to be identified as Russian, don't identify as Russian, left. She's lost all her friends and half her family because of that. And will never go back, because the people who live there want to be under Russian rule. They see themselves as Russians. The people of Crimea, the people in the Donbass and stuff like that, they see themselves as that.
The Civil War was all about that, wasn't it, from 2014? It was about the Eastern... and of course, the thing is, no one's experts on this, even experts on it.
No.
And there's such underhand skullduggery about who's doing what, was Yanukovych overthrown, all this kind of stuff. And we get deep into some very complicated waters very quickly.
It reminds me a little bit of the Congo in the 60s, where, and Angola and places like that, where it was just it was a proxy war, America versus Russia, and the Brits, by throwing the mercenaries in and stuff like that. And it is very much a proxy war now. So we've strayed right off the subject there.
I think it's very interesting, isn't it? If you would ask military guys about this, we'd all have different opinions. But the great thing is, we could all sit around and chat about it. And what I tend to find when I'm using things like Twitter and stuff like this is that you don't have people that can hold these two views in their head. Like, you might go, "No, Ukraine is right." Another guy goes, "No, Russia's right." But we could have different opinions right now and still have a great conversation.
Yeah. It's weird you say that about the two thoughts in your head. I was talking to him. I went down to see one of my mates yesterday down in North Yorkshire, because I hadn't seen him for a long time, and he's had a bit of a rough time and stuff like that. So I went down to see him and his missus, and we were talking about the podcast that we were doing and stuff like that. And it's just, you've just twigged something in my head there, and looking at Northern Ireland and Martin McGuinness.
Yeah.
All right. And you ask anyone who's in the army, the enemy. He's the enemy. He's the enemy. There was no grey area. Martin McGuinness was the enemy. But when you look at it, and I've interviewed guys from the IUC, and I've watched other programs, and I've learned a bit more, and I've grown up a bit more since leaving the military about the subject of Northern Ireland, and I am so conflicted on that bloke, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had the peace process. You know what I mean? He was
Top, right?
integral to it. And as much as I think as class him as the enemy, he was also, you know, an instigator of bringing peace. And
Well,
when you
one
see
man,
him with what do they call him, Ian Paisley,
yeah.
there's a good documentary on iPlayer at the moment about the rise of Ian Paisley. And when they started sharing power, they became friends. You know what I mean? It was just, what, you know, you would
Well,
never have thought that earlier.
when I was in the Navy, my brother's got this essay. We all push boundaries. Like the Navy teaches you to challenge things. It teaches you remember I had a that above my head here, your listeners can't see this, is Dartmouth. I was in the Navy 5 years, I was in the Air Force 15 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got a picture of Dartmouth up here, not Cranwell. That's for a reason. So Britannia Royal Naval College Dartmouth is above my head here. RAF College Cranwell is not above my head. And there's a reason for that, because at Dartmouth, they taught you to challenge authority and to critically think. They wanted naval officers to be contrarian, to say, why are we doing this? Because that's Air Force was not like that at all.
Yeah.
I don't want to get
the
into
military's not either. I mean, sorry, the army's not
I'm
either.
assuming it's not, and I genuinely don't know. I wrote an essay at Dartmouth called "One Man's Terrorist is Another Man's Freedom Fighter," and it was all about. It was quite complex, but a lot of it was about the HMS Conqueror sinking the Belgrano and arguing the Belgrano's position over, say, the Conqueror. And it's just, you know, I was, how old was I? 19 or something. You know, I didn't know anything at all, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm arguing this, going, well, the Belgrano was out of the waters and all this kind of stuff, and the Conqueror did wrong. And I remember getting called into the commander's office, the Commodore's office. It was run by a Commodore called Commodore Clare, lovely man, actually. I've since spoken to him again. This was over 30 years ago. He's now running the museum down in Portsmouth. And the Commodore calls me in about this essay. And he says, look, we teach people here in the Navy to be contrarian, and we challenge assumptions. He says, be careful about this kind of stuff, will you? A little bit.
You can go too far. Yeah.
Just be careful. Just, you know what I mean? Just don't challenge like what HMS Conqueror did in the South Atlantic, because it's a little bit, you know, people in the Navy are kind of be proud of this shit.
It's a bit touchy subject.
Yeah, lower it down a little bit. I'm like, oh, sorry, we'll do it. Yeah. He's like, yeah, no, challenge things. Just fucking ease it up, mate. You know what I mean? But,
I'm enjoying listening to you talking about the places, because I used to be down there. My first married quarter was in Gosport. I was in 4-7 Regiment on Thorney Island.
Yeah, Thorney Island. Yeah.
I loved it.
My family live in Waterloo, see, that's over the hill. My sister's
Yeah. I mean, we used to drink in Emsworth. We used to drink in South Sea.
Emsworth,
Joanna's. Jesus Christ.
Oh, Joanna's. I heard that they just like shut that place down or something. It was going like, I think Fifth Avenue was down there or something.
Yeah.
These places were going. Martins in Portsmouth. Oh, dear.
We used to go to the door there and they'd say, right, you're not coming in, military. And we'd go, what are you on about? You're in the Navy, you're not coming in. We said, no, we're in the Army. Get your ID card out. We showed our ID cards and they let us in because we were Army.
Yeah.
As we would be coming out of there, they'd be saying, like, careful, the shore patrols are up and down the road. And if the shore patrol got hold of us, knowing we were Army, we got battered.
I bet, and it was also next to the main gate, wasn't it? I think for the base, Martins. It comes from outside. It was like right there in front of you. Oh dear!
No, it was a good post, and I loved it down there. I really did.
Jeez.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, right. So back on the subject then. Right,
so you've done early childhood, yeah.
Yeah. So you decided to join up. You joined the Navy. What was that like? You mentioned Dartmouth. So was it a shock to your system turning up there, or did you know what to expect?
Not really. So I was the first officer. I wasn't the first officer in my family. My father was a corporal, so he was never an officer. You see, and he put all 4 kids through university. So to go in as a commissioned rank to him was a really important thing, and that's what social mobility is about, right? So, and he was very proud when he came to see me at Dartmouth. He had his Royal Marines tie on, you know, the Royal Marines jacket and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, quite a proud man of his service, and I really enjoyed Dartmouth. I didn't know what I was doing. It's about a year long. The Cranwell was 6 months. I had mates in the Air Force, but Dartmouth was like a year. I'm like, what's going on with that? It's crazy.
Like Sandhurst, yeah.
Sandhurst was about a year. So we do a lot of the training that the Air Force do as they're going through their Air Force career. We put that into Dartmouth, you see, and I had 3 terms. I think Dartmouth's a bit shorter now, but we also do a sea term as well. So you get to go to sea, initial sea training. I joined a ship in Dubai, and I think I was at London or Boxer, I think it was, HMS Boxer, Type 22 batch something frigate, I can't remember now. And we sailed around Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Jordan, brought the ship all the way back through Cyprus, everything else. So that was, for a young dude, right? That's pretty cool. And I also was on HMS London around the Adriatic during quite a difficult time off the coast of Albania as well. So, you know, this is stuff that you just get thrown into as a young dude. But Dartmouth was like a public school. It was like something out of Harry Potter, I guess, now. So I didn't know what was going on. And it was a mix of public school people and just state school like myself. And we used to, played a bit of rugby. You get to play on the water in little boats. I mean, I've been down to Dartmouth loads of times since. I know really well now. And I really like Dartmouth. And I'd much rather be at Dartmouth than, say, Sandhurst or Cranwell, because Dartmouth's just a lovely little town. When they let you out, they didn't let you out for like 12 weeks. Whereas Cranwell, I think the second weekend you're allowed out. I was like, my mates, we went to join the Air Force. I'm like, what? You allowed out? They're like, yeah, it was home last weekend. I'm like, we've got 12 weeks. We're not allowed out of the college. So, but no, it's great. And I must admit, I loved it. I don't know what I was doing. We did flying grading there as well, which again is a gamble because it's up, down, left, right. Cows get bigger, cows get smaller type thing. And if you join the Navy, if you don't pass your grading, then you've got to rebranch into a seaman officer, I think it is. So warfare officer, supply or engineer. I'd probably rebranch into engineer, but I got through my grading, and then you start flying training like everyone else. And of course, the assumption is that you're all going helicopters as pilots, and I assumed that's what I was going to fly. But then I was doing all right in flying training. You do it with the Army and with the Air Force at a place called Barkston Heath up near RAF Cranwell, and you're on this little yellow aeroplane flying around the place. And someone in the crew, I was just chatting to someone, one of the Air Force mates, and he was like, yeah, I really want to fly jets. And all the Air Force guys were like, yeah, I want to fly jets. And the Navy guys, if you want to fly jets, you were seen as a bit of a pariah. It's like, why don't you want to fly helicopters at the back of ships? That's what the Navy guys do. So all the Navy guys just wanted to fly helicopters. And we didn't know any jet mates because the guys teaching us were ex-helicopter pilots. So we never, because there's only a few jet mates in the Navy anyway. So you never get to see them. And one of the Air Force guys says, well, he says, none of you Navy guys want to fly jets, do you? And I said, well, I'm interested, but I don't know much about it. He says, well, I'll chat to you about it. So we got chatting to some of the Air Force boys over a few lagers because we're all doing the same thing. And it sounded pretty cool. And then one of my instructors went, we'll just go and talk to, there was a commander there, commander flying training, lovely bloke. And one of my instructors said, we'll go and chat to the commander about it because he was a helicopter mate. He knows all about it. And so I walked to his office one day, knocked on the door, and he was at Cranwell. And he said, hey, what's up? I said, just asking, sir, this is a commander. I'm like some little lieutenant. And I said, maybe even sub-lieutenant. And I said, I'm just interested in exploring that opportunity for fast jets. I don't know much about it. And the funny thing was, he said, oh, you want to go fast jets, do you? And I said, I don't know much. He goes, I'll put you down for fast jets. Yeah. He said, we haven't had a guy going fast jets for a long time. I'll put you down for fast jets. He goes, it's really strange. No one wants to go fast jets. I never hear anything about fast jets. Everyone seems to want to fly helicopters. I'll put you down for fast jets. Yeah, I'll stream you fast jets. There you go. How are you doing on the course, by the way? And I was like, I'm doing all right. I was like halfway through or some shit, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden I'm going fast jets. He goes, yeah, definitely, mate. This is fast jets. This is like commander in his like mid-40s. I'm like 20 years old. He goes, no, jets would be really cool. Yeah, go jets. It'd be fun. It'd be brilliant, yeah. And so I won some trophy for areas or something, and everyone else won other trophies. And then at the end of it, I went jets and everyone else went helicopters. It was like that. And so I tell people nowadays, like, you're not going to get it unless you ask for it.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. No one had told me anything. I thought the better you were, the more likely you were going to get selected for fast jets. But it wasn't. It was like, you just got to tell someone you want to do it. And that's all I did. And I spent the next 20 years flying fast jets. Instead of helicopters, which that's how I got there. So from then you go to Tucano's. Everyone, all my mates on my course went helicopters down in where was it at the time? I can't remember where they're flying. It might be Shawbury they went to, and I went to Linton on Ouse to fly Tucano with all Air Force mates. Really, there was a couple of Navy guys, mostly Air Force guys. All my course was Air Force mates, and I was only a Navy guy. But because I was Navy, the Navy had bought place of the Air Force, so we never held any time between courses. The Navy guys went straight through. So my flying training took like 3.5 years, whereas all the Air Force guys spent like 4.5 or 5 years in training. So I kept jumping ahead of courses.
I mean, that's not a long time, is it really? That's quite quick.
It is, yeah. It's
go from like zero to hero type of thing.
And you can fail at any time, and then you're restarting your whole career again.
I mean, we used to see, I was at Allenbrook Barracks up in Topcliffe.
Oh yeah,
for many years.
Topcliffe,
they've got the training flight there as well.
Yeah.
It used to be a bit of a pain in the ass when we needed to use the airfield, and obviously we couldn't.
The Army guys are flying, Lynx out of there or something, were they? Or
no, Lynx was at Dishfith. There was the Hawks. Yeah, Hawks at Topcliffe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
we used to go in the tunnels. I remember being in Topcliffe in the circuit there.
Yeah,
and then you're allowed to do 3 circuits, which is just flying around the airfield and landing each time, but taking off again. And then after the third one, you had to go out like 3 miles away from the airfield, turn around and come back in again, a bit of a break. And I went out Topcliffe, turned around and went, "Where's the airfield gone?" I remember this, like going, fuck is that airfield got? Like literally, I don't know where it is. There was no moving map or GPS or anything back in those days.
And it's, you know what, it's quite close to Dishfith as well. So you
Yeah,
could pick the
yeah,
wrong
you
one.
get yourself lost big style. Like I'm like, I do not know where I am. Like flying around the place looking for a big piece of tarmac on the ground that looks like an airfield.
Yeah.
Absolute nightmare.
It is really close to Dishwith as well.
Yeah.
No, that's mental. That. I mean, I don't know whether I should mention this or not. I mean, the other thing because once I've discovered who you were, I found out about your flying skill type of thing, and I might be signing up for that at some point.
Yeah, do that. I'll give you a
My
shout out.
son for Father's Day bought me the Phantom.
Oh yeah, we're
DCS.
flying that now. Yeah, it's awesome.
And I can't even turn it on.
I'll teach you. It's actually a really easy start. You got to connect the ground power first, then you got to connect the air supply and the right engine. Then you got to start the air supply, 10%, put the fuel in with the igniters, and then once you've done that, you got to put the right generator. Once you've got the right generator, you can bin him on comms, so you can put the left engine in, and then you get the computer. Well, I'll teach you in like 3 minutes. I'll get you started on the F4, and then once you know it, you'll have it for life. You'll love it.
I've been just like I use Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Oh yeah,
you know, and I just turn it on, put a headset on because I use do it in VR.
Yeah,
and it's all VFR flying that I try to do and stuff like that. I mean, I love it. It's great. I try talking to people about it, and they're just like, "Shut up." You know what I mean? It's immersive. It's good. It's good.
It is good. But DCS is a better flight model, I find.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, Microsoft Flight Simulator is quite easy to use. You can just jump in, power up your throttle, take off, and fly around for a bit. And I use that to look at places. You know, when the mapping on it, it's great. You know, terrain and stuff like that. Every time I tried DCS, it's over my head. You know, I need to sit down and.
That's why I've got school, though. To be fair, everyone's the same. I was the same. DCS Eagle Dynamics contacted me and said, "Can you use our sim in your YouTube videos?" And I went, "I don't use it because it's too complicated." And they said, "Well, come online with us, and we'll just show you how to use it." And once I did that, I went, "Actually, yeah, it is like real jets. If I think like a real pilot in this thing, then it makes sense. I know, and it's so realistic. I just had to think like a pilot."
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask that later on. I know. I was, I was going to mention about your YouTube channel and stuff like that. Is it real though? Is it like accurate?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's the most accurate sim I've ever found. I find it more accurate than some of the military sims I found. Some of the military sims actually. So that's why I use it. I put all see the jets behind me here. You people can't see this. I've got tornadoes and hawks on my wall. I teach that hawk syllabus in DCS now, all 9 months worth of it. So it'll take you 9 months to get through. You fly once a week. You can fly as many times a week as you want. I've got 7 lessons a week, and I've got a Friday night party, and I've got a Sunday session I've just done, which is why we had problems getting this thing done. You know what I mean? And you just come on and you fly as many. People are flying now. I could bring out people flying all over the world, all night, all day. I can see them on using something called TAC View. I can see what work they're doing. Yeah. And we have a syllabus, or syllabi, in fact, a weapons one, and an advanced. It's actually the beginners one, but it's called advanced. And then the weapons syllabus. So the first 4 months you're flying, you're not touching any weapons whatsoever. We're just doing all the stuff that we learn on Hawk 208 that I was an instructor on. And then the second one, we're using all the weapon stuff that, again, I taught on that as well for about 3 or 4 years. And guys love it. Guys, we're starting a new course in a week's time, in fact, from the very beginning. But you can join any time.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
Well,
anyway, let's get back on track before we get into
it. Yeah, no worries. Absolutely.
So, you've done your flight training. So what happened after that?
So flight training, went to Valley onto Hawk. And also we do Hawk T1 at 208 Squadron, 19 Squadron. And from there, I was at the back end of 19 Squadron. I had one trip to do, like my last trip I had to do. And there were guys behind me who had like 7 or 8. I remember one of the guys had like 8 trips to go. And it was a big thing because they were saying, he's got 8 trips. Because what happened is the Sea Harrier got decommissioned. And we knew it was going to happen. We thought we were going to fly it before it got decommissioned. But it got decommissioned early. And it was a big thing. Everyone's flying training was stopped. Like no matter where you were in the naval pipeline for jets, you were stopped that day. Like, that's your training stop right now. We're going to work out what we're going to do with you. Do we put you on a helicopters? Can we continue for some reason, you flying jets? I don't know how we're going to do that. And I had one trip to go. There were other guys ahead of me that had finished the course already, but hadn't started on Sea Harrier. There were guys that had just started on the Sea Harrier OCU, the Operational Conversion Unit, how to fly the Sea Harrier. And they were stopped flying. And it was like turmoil. So there were, I think, about 8 guys at Valley with me all the way through Valley that were in the Navy. And we each had like interviews with the Navy and the Air Force, and the Navy was saying, look, to be fair, guys, we recommend that you transfer across to the Air Force because you're so far ahead in your flying training. And we hated the Air Force, right? So, bunch of idiots. We hated the Air Force. And of course, we've been slagging the Air Force off, wearing our berets and, wearing Navy berets and Navy badges. It was uber Navy, right?
Yeah.
I had a massive beard going on, everything. It was awesome. Just to piss the Air Force off, with sideburns down here coming out by anything the Air Force did, we'd make sure we made it,
Yeah, it's just the military banter thing. It's
exactly,
great, isn't it?
Yeah. The Air Force hated it, which is why we loved it, right? So, and then all of a sudden, the Navy's saying, you're probably going to have to transfer to the Air Force if you want to kind of fly in jets. And we're like, we've just pissed off the Air Force for about 5 years. So, or start again and fly helicopters from the very beginning. And that's going to take you back 3.5 years. So for me, I didn't want to join the Air Force. So I said, I'm happy to fly Air Force airplanes, but as a naval officer, right? Because after 3 years, maybe another aircraft was coming in. There was talk about flying the Harrier, the Royal Air Force Harrier for naval officers. And so the Air Force said, well, we can give that a go. So I went to Lossiemouth initially as a naval officer to fly Tornado because they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to fly ground. My ground attack was strong, but my air defense was poor. So I was a much better ground attack pilot, which would probably mean I'd have struggled on the Harrier anyway, to be fair. The Naval Harrier, which is a Sea Harrier, air defense. And I got sent up to 15 Squadron to do the ACU, Operational Conversion Unit, on the Tornado, which was the best flying you could ever do ever in the whole world ever, bar none. Like flying that big 27-ton swing wing messenger of death through the valleys of, the lochs of Scotland type thing.
Yeah.
Getting paid money for that shit. Fucking crazy, right? In the dark as well, in cloud. I mean, it was crazy. And then I went on to 12 Squadron, full of waifs and strays. And from 12 Squadron, I did transfer to the Air Force because the Navy said, there's nothing for you to do back here. You're on a Tornado Squadron now. You may as, and all the guys transferred. All the guys, pretty much, I think, apart from one guy, transferred to the Air Force.
Did you have to go to Cranwell?
They did
to do that.
A funny story, right? I won't keep you with this one. Like 30-second dip. The guy that took me from the Air Force to the Navy was a guy called Mike Wigston. Now, Mike Wigston, strangely enough, turned out to be the boss that I went on to the squadron underneath. So he was a squadron leader. He encouraged me, Tim, come to the Air Force. Don't worry about the Navy. We need pilots anyway. You're fully trained up. Come to the Air Force. We'll look after you, right? He said, I'm a Tornado pilot. Come to Tornado. It'll be brilliant. He was a squadron leader. Now, when I got to Lossie, he'd become a wing commander. And he became the boss of a squadron called 12 Squadron. I went on to that squadron. I went on to the squadron underneath him. And he was an awesome boss. Everyone loved him. He was brilliant. Cyprus, drinking, jumping off buildings into bushes. All the old school kind of party stuff. He was old school Tornado. He was German squadron stuff before they moved. Awesome. He became the chief of the air staff later on. And he was the guy that started bringing in the 40% women and 20% minorities by 2030. He was the guy that started discriminating against white men on entry to prioritize minorities and women. And he was the guy I went up against on Sky News, Daily Mail, Talk TV, LBC Radio, directly against him to tell him that his policy was discriminatory. And it was, in fact. And there was a group captain who stood down because she couldn't go against the policy that was illegal, in effect, to discriminate. This whole DI stuff came in.
Yeah, I remember. I
love the guy. I still love the guy. It's just that he decided running the Air Force, he was going to politicize the employment of young white men. I couldn't have that, right? So in the end,
I remember it all.
Yeah, and that's so. But he's my boss. So I went on the squadron, on 12 Squadron with him. Went to Iraq twice with him. I mean, other bosses as well. And then after that, after 12. I end up going flying training on the Hawk. Yeah. So
you mentioned Iraq there. So what did you do in Iraq?
So Iraq was a very non-kinetic event for us, which means that we went out early on, 0607, and we were looking for making sure that the infrastructure in the southern part of the country primarily was intact, and there was kinetic activity primarily from the Americans, so they were bombing stuff. The British Army were getting a hit IED wise, but they weren't doing anything kinetic themselves. I attended a lot of incidents of IEDs, and we had a targeting pod on so we could see the ground clearly. So, Amaro was a big incident that I was involved in. I wrote an essay on that where young boys were killed. 3 young boys were killed down there. So we were over the top of that. And we were always armed with the bomb. We had the gun. We had the targeting pod, and we were doing a lot of recce work to make sure, make sure the MSRs were intact. There was no sabotage on the oil platforms. Doing a lot of routes. We worked north of the country up towards Baghdad and across to Mosul and Kabul as well, up to the Iranian border. and all the mountainous regions, and all the way down the east of the country as well. And we did that. I did a couple of tours out there doing that.
What was it like going up near the Iranian border? That got a bit hairy, was it? You know, were you getting
Well,
pinged there?
so I mean, yeah, I mean, I had one incident where with using the camera to do a lot of reconnaissance work, just to make sure. I mean, we're right on the edge of the border sometimes as well, kind of taking the piss a little bit, pushing so close to the border that anyone's going to be threatened by that. And we had F-14s from Iran launched at us a couple of times, and they're fast as well. And they got a big long range missile on them at the time. I think it was like Hawk. They managed to strap to that thing, so we had to egress back into the middle of Iraq a lot of the time. But yeah, it's not scary. It's a beautiful country. I mean, geez, it is stunning. A lot of the time we're working night as well. So as you're recovering back down to southern Iraq, you're trying to hit a tanker down on the southern tow lines, and that tanker would bring you back home. And the sun would be coming up in the east over the Iranian mountains in the west of the country. And just stunning, really is stunning. I mean, it just is. Tired as a snake, of course. Nav was normally asleep in the back seat. And, if a pilot fell asleep as well, death's going to happen quickly too. I'm trying to keep your eyes open, like, just matchstick's like, I'm all right, I'm okay. I've only got 3 hours to go home. But your long sortie time as well, 6-7 hours sometimes, 8 hours.
That's a long time, I'd imagine. The concentration levels that you need to...
that
would be intense.
When you went tanking, that would break it up. You fly around for an hour and a half, go to find a tanker somewhere, fly around for another hour and a half, 2 hours, find a tanker. Yeah. Try and get some scran, get some food if you could. And then, try not to go to the toilet. I never really needed to because I'm an inverse camel sort of thing, you know what I mean? But I remember I had female navigators down the back, and they'd always go, right, I'm getting undressed now, I'm going to use the bathroom. I'm like, just turn yourself down. I'm turning you down. I don't want to
don't want to hear that.
Don't want to hear any of this. Disgraceful women we used to fly with. No, they were lovely. They really were. Yeah.
So what was it like going from that to being an instructor then? So
no one wants to do that at all. No one ever wants to go be an instructor from frontline duties, and I really fought against it. And then when I had to go, they are selected for instructional duties. You've got to be exceptionally good looking, basically. Which is what it is. No, I don't know why
they so modest as well.
Yeah, exactly. Really modest. I don't know why they select some people, but I wanted to go to the weapons squadron, but they selected me for the advanced flying training instead on T1. And actually, after a while, there's some great characters there. One of which just died, of course, Mark Long in the Spitfire at Coningsby. I flew with Mark. So Mark was on the squadron with us. Lovely bloke, actually. And they're just some great characters. A real characterful time of real Royal Air Force training. There was no PFI in place. There was no civvy contractor there. It was Royal Air Force flying training done exceptionally well. And we absolutely loved it. It was the purest flying, like Hawk T1, no head-up display, no moving map. You're out over North Wales doing navigating, teaching students. Really, really cool stuff. I really liked it. Flying like you're never going to get anywhere else. So I feel really privileged to have done that. Feeling very old now, of course, because everything now has got moving maps and stuff. And from there, I had an Afghan tour on promotion with the US Army on the ground in Kabul, and then I came back into Hawk T2. They needed flight commanders. I'd been promoted for some stupid reason, and they needed flight commanders to come back in on the Hawk T2. And so I did, and we sort of brought that jet into service, really, the Hawk T2, which is an upgraded T1. Like the Red Arrows fly. Ours had the Red Arrows jet, but ours had new kit inside it, like a synthetic radar and radar warning receiver and a moving map, like GPS, sat-nav, basically.
So I've got to ask you one thing. How many people did you used to wave to when you were doing the Mach loop?
Oh, I used to flash the nose light and trucks would flash back. Yeah, so I put one of my latest videos. I think I took one of the little Hawk T1s on Microsoft Flight Sim. I talked about.
Yeah, I watched that the other night.
Yeah, that's good on VR. All that shit comes back to you. It's good for that. I don't think Microsoft Flight Sim does jets well, which is why we use DCS from a school. Yeah. Although we do fly Microsoft Flight Sim in the school. But yeah, as you come out of the Mach loop, there's a road that comes down on the exit, and you can flash trucks, and trucks will flash back at you because the nose light on the Hawk, just the light on the front of the Hawk, there's a little switch on off. You switch it on off a couple of times, and trucks would flash back at you. Yeah. Yeah, lads. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, the only time I've ever experienced anything like that was we were in Canada over at Wainwright, and we got dicked to do enemy for the Canadian Army for Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, I think they were called.
Yeah,
and they stuck us on this hill, and we were there. They took us up the night before, stuck us on this hill. So right, climb up there, sit there. You're going to get attacked tomorrow morning. Right, okay then. and we're just milling about on this hill doing nothing. And the morning came, and we knew what direction they were coming from, and we just heard this rumble in the distance, and all of a sudden, like this fast jet came past, and it was below us. We were looking down at it into the cockpit, and the pilot, was like looking up at us, and the speed of him going past was immense. But for that split second, it seemed like slow motion, and I'll never ever forget that. I know it's just I was awestruck basically, and it was the power of that aircraft going past. It's just you felt it. You know what I mean? It was like he wasn't going like he wasn't breaking a soundbar or anything like that. At least I don't think it was. But you felt the force, and I took my hat off to him, and you, I take my hat off to you because I couldn't imagine trying to control something that fast, that big, that dangerous in the sky. I was in the artillery. We fire big bang sticks. Very, very different thing. But we're about the same.
Well, artillery is winning the war in Ukraine right now, isn't it? Russian artillery. That was vastly underestimated by us, wasn't it?
I mean, Jesus, I don't even want to get onto that one. Where the size of the artillery, and we used to be the biggest regiment in the army.
Immense what they're doing with that, isn't it? It's an escalation dominance platform, isn't it? Artillery. You think about it. It's like, right, I'm not going to let you work anymore because I'm going to shell you 24/7, 365. Work in that, and that's what Russia did. It's like, I don't know how we're going to work now. Most of the fatalities in Ukraine are from artillery, aren't they? There's very, very few from actual. No, so escalation dominance is what fast jet flying is about. I mean, I know soldiers that have come under artillery fire, shell scrape, fine, happy. That stopped, and then jets come in with rockets, and they are digging holes. They're burying themselves. Like they said, it's a different. There's escalations, isn't there? They're taking shots at each other. Fine, we got that. Artillery, fucking, we got that. That was a nightmare. And then jets and helicopters come in with rockets, and it's like just.
Yeah, I mean, I was in 2003 when we were outside of Basra. I watched an A-10 come in and take out some vehicles and hit a building, and it was just on it, the sound of the A-10 when it's firing. It just awestruck. Just fucking, I do not want to be on the other end of that.
You don't want to be anywhere near that thing, do you?
Nah, not a chance.
No, that's it.
I mean. I've mentioned it before in other podcasts that I've done. The only time, 27 years I was in the army, and the only time I was scared, in reality, the way I thought something might happen, was when we moved forward as a recce party, and we ended up just a lone vehicle, 432 with three of us on it.
Yeah,
we set up a recce point ready for the guns to come through and update their datum information. And they bypassed us, and we said, like, we're here. They said, right, we'll just stay there. There's baddies in the area. Stay where you are. First light, move out. And we're like, okay. First light came, and two Yank helicopters came over. And we, like, looked at them, and they, like, swung back and come back towards us to have another look. And we were like, fucking hell. We were starting back with Union Jacks and everything.
Yeah, get the flag flying. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, honestly, I shit you not, hand on my heart, it's the only time I've ever been scared.
Yeah,
I thought I might have come. That something might have happened.
Wouldn't they? Yeah,
I've been shelled, been mortared, been shot at, whatever. But that was the only thing that made me think, shit.
Matty Hull was killed. Was it Matty Hull was killed by an A-10, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Young Matty Hull, he was killed by a couple of. Was it A-10? I think A-10 by the National Guard, wasn't it? I believe.
With the guys in the First Gulf War, the two warriors that got took out by the A-10s as well.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, the guy I was talking to before we did this, the Pioneer guy, he had to go and tied up after that as well.
That's
crazy, it's fucking the way he described what happened. The mess basically. I was just like, fucking hell. That's bad.
I can't imagine that stuff.
So your time coming up to leaving the Air Force, you become the senior instructor. Was that just like a pain in the ass? Like more of a paper job, or? Well,
it's called AC Standards, Officer Commanding Standards Flight, in effect. So all the flying training standards and personal standards, in effect, of what was the largest squadron in the Air Force at the time, still is, I think. Well, actually, no, it's not anymore. It's split into two. But at the time, we had 28 airplanes, 80 pilots, 80. It's a lot of people. And of course, I had a drink problem at the time as well. So I'm a standards officer, enforcing all these standards. I'm drinking myself into oblivion every night. But that's a coping mechanism. One of the ways you can deal with that kind of level of stress is that you basically lean into alcohol or other things people lean into, I suppose. The thing about it is, you're coupling very long days, and the problem is, I think if I look back on it now and I think, why did that happen? Why did I go towards alcohol? Was a control issue, so a lack of control. So the squadron itself had been heavily civilianized under the United Kingdom military flying training system by a company called Ascent Flight Training. I'm not blaming Ascent, but the Treasury had looked for ways of making sure that flying training was predictable in the way that financially it had been spread out over, say, 25 years. Because one year the Royal Air Force said, I need £100,000 to pay for food for next year's flying training. And the next year it was, I need £26 billion because we've got to buy new airplanes. The Treasury were like, hang on, I was going to build 3 hospitals, now I can't. So it got a PFI in effect for something like £4 billion. Lockheed Martin, Babcock Defence Services created a company called Ascent Flight Training to provide flying training for the next 25 years from about 2008. And we were the first squadron that was stood up underneath that, which is a fast jet squadron, which was the wrong way of doing it, but the only way of doing it at the time. So this company that knew nothing, and I would argue they know very little today, because I'm not a huge fan, they came in to deliver flying training, and of course they didn't know what they were doing. So my men had to write all the books for them, pretty much, which they then stamped their civilian name on top of, and as their courseware that the Air Force or the Treasury had paid for. And because we didn't have control really of what we were doing, I think a lot of pilots on that squadron, a lot of instructors on that squadron felt very, I could use words like disenfranchised. I could, stuff like that. It was a very difficult time. Most of my guys went to Saudi Arabia to fly after that. They didn't want anything to do with the service. They felt very let down. I stayed until about, and now people that are flying under it will say, what do you mean, Tim? It's great. And I suppose it is great now. We're in 2024. I'm talking about 2008. I'm talking about the early days of it, when it was literally an awful place to work. You didn't know what you were doing every day you went in. And if you were due to fly the night before, those trips were cancelled. You were put on a different trip. So you had this, you were living. I always said this about being a fast jet pilot. You just live with anxiety the whole time for many, many reasons. You're only as good as the last flight. No one ever tells you, I mean, this is me as a senior instructor saying this as well. No one ever tells you you've had a good flight. They only tell you what you could do better. So your entire existence as a fast jet pilot is, you can do better than that. Next time, you can do better. This is how we're going to do better. And you live with that. It's high level of anxiety. So I got to the point, 2011, I've been out to Afghan. My father had died the same year. I was flown back from Afghan to bury my father, in fact, and then flown back out to Afghan. A lot of people were being killed out in Afghan as well. I was armed the whole time. Although I was technically within a green zone in Kabul, people kept getting blown up around us. We had killings on base, people walking in with guns and shooting. That was a mess, right? And I was out there by myself as well, as an Air Force guy, surrounded by, I think there were like 12 British Army guys that I never really met ever, like 2 Navy guys, and then 3,000 Americans on the base. You know what I mean? And I was with the US Army. So that was a bit strange. Came out from that, and then I went into the flying training role on the Hawk T2, and that's when I became OC Standards and the flight commander. And it just was, I think, about 4 years worth of, a bit longer than that. Eventually, I took myself off flying. I said in 2017, I need to do something else. They sent me to Bristol to do a requirements manager job, and I brought in loads of other airplanes for the Royal Air Force. The Grod Prefect, that's elementary flying training, the Texan T2, it's T6C2, which is flying up at Valley still, and the Embraer Phenom, which is a multi-engine aircraft at Cranwell. I brought those in as a requirements manager. But I had to still fly on the jet because I didn't have enough instructors. So now not only am I not full-time, I'm now part-time, living in a flat in Bristol with a failing marriage. My wife's still up at the base, up at Valley in Anglesey. And I'm going back up there every couple of weeks to do maybe 1 or 2 trips, 1 or 2 flights a month. Yeah. So now I'm underconfident in my flying ability. And of course, because I held quite a senior position, they always promise whenever you come back up to fly, we'll give you an easy trip. Like we'll give you a trip to bed you back in, like a flight where you take a jet up and it's an easy teach. There were complicated sorties to teach, and there were more simpler sorties to teach. But of course, I held all the qualifications to teach the most complicated sorties, which is being the enemy aircraft or whatever it might be, and fighting 2 aircraft versus 1 and teaching the 2 guys in the other aircraft from my own aircraft. Really high-level, complex stuff. Complicated at the best of times when you're flying the whole time. But when you're flying it once or twice a month, and normally I'll be flying maybe 12 to 15 times a month, and I'm working this office job where I'm just a typist, basically, bringing in these new aeroplanes. It was probably the most stressful thing I could have done. And then halfway through the tour, I just said, I want to leave the Air Force, please. And I was wrapped up in drinking at that point, failing marriage and shit. So it was right. I took myself out of the cockpit. And then I left in early 2018. Mid-2018 was my last day in the Air Force. So July the 1st, 2018. And so I've been out for, I guess, about 6 years now.
Wow. That's a fucking big step to do that to yourself, really. I mean, how was the transition? I mean, I've watched some of your YouTube videos where you've spoke about it and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and it rang home true with me. I mean, again, when we were talking about, before we started recording, I'm now under up courage for my mental health,
yeah,
and as it turns out, it's for me, it's loss and grief and not being able to handle where I am, the situations and stuff like that I'm in
yeah,
at the moment,
yeah.
and
I get
it's
it.
and the guy, the counsellor I was talking to, basically put me down or sat me down after I'd like give him 2 hours of shit coming out my mouth, and said, like, basically there's a bit of a control issue here, that you've got lack of control over. Um, it's hard for people to adjust where in the military your life is controlled. It's
Yeah,
you know where to be, what to do, what you're wearing, stuff like that. And when you leave the military, if you haven't got a definite line, and the way I've thought about it since me and him spoke about it was, a lot of people leave the military, they get a leaving do, a mess do, or whatever, and that's like the finalization. That's like the end of your career. When I left, I was sent on gardening leave for like 4 or 5 months.
yeah,
They just said, right, we don't need you. I literally walked into work and went, I've done my course, pre-release course. What do you want me to do? And they went, nothing. Go away. Just basically, they didn't want to know.
yeah.
They
That's
said,
right. I
basically,
don't think
fuck
they're
off.
allowed to know, are they? Because you're on guarding leave. You're not supposed to be in work technically.
No.
It's almost like you're not insured. You can't be in work. You must go on gardening leave.
Yeah, they
That's why they
basically
send
sent
you.
me home. I sat at home for 5 months,
Yeah,
dekitted, uh, last day, handed my ID card in, and drove out of camp.
yeah, yeah.
And that
Awful.
was it. There was no fanfare. There was no,
Oh no.
and I've never got to that point where, right, my career was over there. It just kind of like, there was no, I don't know how to explain it. There was no line. There was no line drawn for moving over. So like, I haven't accepted that. And other things that have happened since, and
Sure, sure.
and stuff like that. And that'll be the same for a lot of people. The transition from going from military to civilian is shit. And I'd imagine that's the same in the RAF, the Navy, or the
Yeah,
Army.
it's shit. Yeah, of course it is.
We don't get
I
taught
help them
enough.
with this stuff. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is. It is shit. I'd rather they said you're in the military for 20 years. You can't get out, and you can't stay in. So you know that in 20 years' time you're leaving, and now it's like 5 years to go, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and you can build up to it, and then you can go, that's my last day, bang, I'm out.
Yeah.
That would be more psychologically beneficial than you choosing when you're going to leave because you've been angry at work one day or some shit like that, or you're sick of the boss, or whatever. And I never had a leaving dinner either. I never had anything like that. And I went on gardening leave. I sat at home for 2.5. You're not out of work on gardening leave, so sit at home for 2.5 months. And then we had the whole DEI, George Floyd, COVID thing came in when I left, so that was all a bit weird. And I couldn't really find any work. And of course, you got the wife then, failing marriage and shit, still alcohol dependent. I don't use alcoholism because of the framing of the word and what it means for people. So I don't use alcohol dependent because I think alcoholism allows people to accept victimhood in what they're doing, whereas it's a choice we make, of course, whether people like it or not, whether we do imbibe alcohol. I do a lot of work with people on this now, and I know people disagree with me. I'm not saying that. So I just kept drinking for the next 4 years. When I left heavily, in fact, I'll tell you what happened to me. So I had marriage issues, like major ones, because of course I'm there for work. I'm there to keep young students alive. I'm not there for my wife at the end of the day, am I? I'm not sharing that thing around. I'm like, if I'm not there for my men, and there were some women as well, but mainly men at work, and they die, that's going to hit me for life, isn't it? And I can't risk that. So I've got to be there for my men. I've got no time for the wife. She's at home. She's running a business and everything. We came outside. Now you've got to live together? Like, what the hell's that about, right? We're not very good at doing that. We all understand that. That's why people split up. And shit, I was looking at a divorce, and I was happy with looking at a divorce, 110%. I was walking around. We live near Cheltenham. I know all the estate agents around Cheltenham by name because I was in there looking for flats and shit like that. I'm that guy. I'm like, fucking, I'm done with this bollocks. I'm going to get a flat. It's going to be an awesome bachelor pad. All that kind of bullshit we tell ourselves, right? And then eventually I came.
Yeah, it's not fucking real, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. I know it's not. I know men that have killed themselves. I know we have pilots who had divorces, left the military, divorce, leave military, get divorced, alcohol, pretty standard fucking thing people do. And then they kill themselves. And I've always said, yeah, absolutely. And you're a survivor right there because you're not dead.
Yeah.
I know a lot. You know, I knew a lot of guys that killed themselves. I say a lot. I knew 4 people that killed themselves. 2 of them pilots, right? So, and I looked at those myself. So the beams in my garage, and I talked about suicidal ideation when I left the military, and there's many reasons for it. Not just leaving the military, there were other things. There was a marriage issue that I was going through at the time. There was the alcohol dependency I was going through at the time. I couldn't find work. There's a loss. I'm emasculated as a man. My wife's working. I'm not working. She moves in. We've got a house down here. Can't provide for it. All that bollocks. Looking at beams in the garage, but I did a lot of reading at the time as well, because that's how men do. We try and read ourselves out of problems, which is ridiculous. I realise now that's not the way. We can't think ourselves out. We have to move ourselves. It's the body that we have to move. This is what I know. People are going to disagree with me. That's absolutely fine, 100%. The way I got it was by moving the body, putting myself in difficult places, because one of the things I learned was that no one cares about you, right? No one's coming to save you. And I keep telling people, no one's going to come and save you, but from yourself. Like, they can come and save you. They can come and give you a job. They can give you cash. They can give you money. They can give you a better relationship. They can give you a young girl to go and play with, whatever the fuck it is, give you a car, that kind of shit. But they can't save you from that person that lies in that bed at night, that time before you shut your eyes. That's the person they can't save you from. They can't save you from those negative thoughts, that feeling of helplessness, that I'm not worthy feeling, that, you know, I've done nothing worthwhile. They can't save you. The only person that can do that is yourself. And that's the work I do with guys now in the school, primarily my flight school. You know, it's a bit of a, you know, we go and fly airplanes, but really we do a lot of work on this. So it was only when I realized that I can be one of those guys that kills themselves, and that could be my legacy. And everyone would understand that. They'd be like, oh yeah, fucking Tim, look what happened to Tim. Yeah, he was an alcohol dependent. He was massively stressed out in the Air Force. They could list ways I've been let down, fucking whatever, marriage failing, all that kind of shit. You know, father died, all that fucking bollocks, and he killed himself. Everyone understands that shit.
Yeah,
everyone gets it. And so I'm looking at these beams in my garage. I'm a naval officer, you know. Well, I know how to tie ropes and shit. I've got all that shit, and it went on for months. This, and people would say to me, "Well, if you haven't done it, then obviously you don't mean to do it." They're fucking sitting there in tears and shit. You know, I put my hand up to it. You know, it's a fucking dude, right? I sat on the floor of that garage in tears, and then I started bringing weights into the garage. And then I started moving the body around a little bit by doing some press ups. Just old fucking iron I found around the place. Like, I found a dumbbell here and there in a shop, whatever. It brings moving the body, really thinking you've got to drive yourself out of this. How are you going to do it? And there is no going to another bunch of guys. With hindsight, that probably would have been a better thing to do. Would have been to maybe have gone to a real hardcore lifting gym, let's say. Or maybe just learned to start going swimming. But I was still drinking at the time. So that's, you know, and I do miss that. But so your brain's not in the right place. The neurotransmitters are not really working properly. And I think a lot of people end up, you know, killing themselves because they can't really see a way out. Whereas if they were able to get some kind of help, and they were able to get a guy to just grab them a little bit and go, well, I'm just going to live with you for 6 months, and we're just going to go running together, and we're going to beast ourselves. You know, it is when you beast yourselves in the army, you're carrying packs long distance. The last thing you think about is killing yourself. You're like, fucking, there's some weird shit going on. You're like, that's not even in your mindset anymore. No. So I went through that for a long period of time. And I stopped drinking the 1st of January back in 2023 now. So I'm about 18 months clear of that. And I could only stop drinking once I'd really worked myself through this suicidal ideation that went on for, must be, I'd like to say 4 months. But if I'm really honest about it, it was probably a bit longer than that. And I still get flashes of it. You know, I still get these kind of flashes, but I know what it is. And I know why it's happening now. You know, I've hit the healthy diet now. I'm teaching people, which is a great thing. It's like you do on your podcast. You know how powerful that is to be contributing something somehow, you know. So I think we need to build as men. So what can we build? Is it a physical thing? Is it my driveway? Is it I'm building a car? Is it something that, you know, we are progressing in something forwards? And for me, building a school, I've got the YouTube channel, of course, you know, helping back. And I take a lot of hate from people for being honest about this. And I'd rather do that than have another mate hanging themselves and find out, you know, that another dude killed themselves, because fuck, it happens. Our age, it happens. It just does. And I'm not there to stop. I'm not there to be anyone's best friend. People write me fucking essays, books. They write me about how bad they are. I've stopped going back. I write back, mate, I hope you can feel better. Join my school. That's what I say. Join my school. All right. It's £10 a month. I know. Fucking, you don't even have to fly. Come and join my school. We'll talk about this stuff. I'll go flying with you. I'll do a one-on-one. But what I'm not interested in is, and it's hard to describe, people like to offload. I understand that. They write me an essay. And if everyone writes you an essay, they expect an essay back. It doesn't work like that. The work has to be done I can write them back something, and I could just write them back as the most fucking perfect thing. They're not going to listen, not going to do it, because that work needs to be done by yourself. And it took me a long time to realize that. I read everyone. I mean, I'd done the Jordan Peterson stuff. I'd done anyone that had written anything about it. I'd read twice, 3 times over, trying to think my way out of it. Why? Because when I was flying airplanes, my brain controlled my life. If my brain told my hand to go up and down, and it did, and it stopped the aircraft flying into the ground, then obviously my brain controls my life. And now I don't feel like that. Now I believe my body controls my life. My body and how I move and what I do, what I put in my body, or what I don't put into my body as well. It's not, I always say to people, it's not what I'm doing that's making me successful. It's what I'm not doing. We will kill ourselves in the hours from when we get back to work to when we go to sleep through alcohol. Maybe you've got some drug thing. Maybe you're watching TV, eating poor food. We all do it. That's how we're going to die. Those hours are going to kill us. The boredom is what's going to kill us. And that's what we've got to occupy. And the strength and the power from the individual, and this is how I feel about us as people, comes from doing the things that make us uncomfortable. We've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's really hard. It's fucking hard. I don't want to use my gym in the morning. I go out there at 7 in the morning. I don't want to use it, ever. Never once have I looked forward to going to my gym in the morning. Not once. I've been out there when it says -7 degrees in the garage. I've got a clock on the wall. It's -7. You're picking up iron at -7 degrees. It's miserable. Miserable. But I do it because then in the evening, I know I've done something constructive with my day. The only person that's going to save you is yourself. No one's coming to save you otherwise. Genuinely, people don't care. Your mum might care. She might tell you, I care about you. She does. That's true. But everyone else, we all lose people. Life goes on. The person you've got to look after is yourself. And that means you've got to respect yourself. You can't expect anyone else to love you unless you love yourself. So how do we create that person that we do love? We do things that are uncomfortable, and then we create a person that we can then go and give freely to the world. Look at what you're doing with this podcast. The amount of people that you're helping, you don't even realize the people you're helping. No. People listen to your podcasts. And when you invited me on here, I didn't know who you were. I went and listened to some of your podcasts. I'm like, this guy's got something now. He's a clever dude. He's tapped into something. He can have conversations with people that are going to change people's lives. He doesn't even realize it yet. And that's the truth. That's why I've come on here, because I realize the power that you have as a podcast. This is your thing. What you're doing is you're helping people by putting messages out, well, not mine, because mine, whatever, I don't care, but, from other people. And people listen to them and they get strength from them. It's a real powerful thing. So you should, thank you for letting me come on here to talk to you.
Honestly, like I said earlier, thanks for coming on. And I feel quite humbled when people say stuff like that. I've got a podcast yet to come out. It was one of the old CEOs of my regiment. And at the beginning of that podcast, I went, laughing the joke and, right, where did you grow up? And he went, stop. And he said more or less similar to what you said there, that I didn't realize when I first started doing these podcasts that they might impact anybody. Like I said, we were talking earlier, but it was going to be a bit of fun. People sat down taking a piss out of each other. And the first one that we ever did with mate Chris, and 5 minutes into it, he turned around and said, "Oh yeah, something you don't know is I tried killing myself when I was in training because I couldn't handle it, and I just my ass fell out." You know what I mean? I was like, "Shit, what do I do now? Where do I go from here?" And people open up to you, and they've come on and they want to tell their story, and I hope that people do listen to these, and people have listened to yours, especially about the alcohol dependency. I mean, I'll put my hand up. Fucking hell, I'm a pisshead, really, and I drink far too much. But and I have done all my life, and I know that I've got to cut it out. And I haven't got that frame of mind yet. It'll come. And listening to some of the stuff you just said then has resonated in my own mind and made me start thinking about other stuff. The moving, really. You're right. And you're right about what... I wouldn't say people don't care, because they do. They do care, but it's verbal. Like you say, no one's going to come and grab you and hug you and talk to you. And it's you can talk to me anytime. I don't want to fucking talk to you. I want.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? I want to feel better.
Yeah.
And talking to you, talking does help. I've found that recently. I've got more friends than I thought I had. I'll put it that way. I went through a long time after I'd left the army where I regressed into myself and I didn't want to leave the house and stuff like that. And because of that, the marriage broke down and, whatever. And And it's only recently that, again, started doing the podcast that I've started coming out with that shell. And I've realised that I have got friends. And I would never, if anyone rang me, I would never answer the phone. I wouldn't answer the phone. I still can't understand. I'm sat here talking to you, a complete stranger. Fucking 6 months ago, not a chance. I wouldn't have picked the phone up to anyone. I wouldn't talk to anyone. Yeah, I answer the phone at work all day. I work in IT. I work in IT support. I talk to people all day at work. I look after people at work. I answer to the boss. I look at my team. I look after that team and stuff like that. But when I left work, I was back into my own little bubble. Honestly, if my phone had rang, I wouldn't have answered it to anyone because I didn't want to talk to anyone. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But doing this has brought it out on me, and people have started approaching me now to tell their story. I'm doing one with a guy next week. I haven't spoken to him, I haven't seen him for 20 odd years, and he just come up on Facebook and said, "Can I come and tell my story?" It's it's PTSD's affected him after he'd left the military and stuff like that. And I am all for it, for people to come and talk to me, tell their story. And I've had one guy who come on and spoke about stuff that, and I won't mention his name or what he was on about because it'll be obvious to certain people, but he'd never spoke about what had happened for 20 odd years. He'd never spoke to anyone, not even his wife. And he said to me, "Can I come and do the podcast with you? It'll be the first time I talk about it." I said, "Yeah." And people who know him know what we're on about, right? And he spoke about it, and certain things had happened. No one knew it happened, or no one knew why. And it was a big of a shock for me and everything like that. And then afterwards, he said, "Can I listen to it back?" I said, "Yeah, of course I can." So I sent him the recording, and he just went, No, I don't want to. No, I'm not willing to put it out." And I was like, "Fine, it's deleted. It's gone. It's gone forever. You've got your copy. If you want to listen back to that, or if you ever change your mind, we can put that out." So if people want to come on and in the end just sit and talk to me, and then we do nothing with that podcast, that's fine. That's your coping mechanism, But like when you saying with your school, you're helping people with that. It's a similar type of thing. It's like I don't know. It's like clubs, the armed forces breakfast clubs and stuff like that. People go in there and finding another group or another outlet, another brotherhood, let's say, because that's what we all miss when we leave as well. I mean, I don't know if it was the same for you, but I didn't realise until recently that I was missing that. I thought when I leave the army, right, that's it, fucking gone. Military's gone. Not interested in it. Like you'll see that shit on the wall behind me, right? That's not real, by the way, right? That's just a BB gun. I'd never had anything like that on the walls. I haven't got loads of military photos and stuff like that. Wasn't interested in keeping it. And it's only recently that that's become like, I wouldn't say a shrine, but it's making me remember and think and say, well, it wasn't, you did something. You didn't waste 27 years. Sometimes I felt that after I'd left. I'd felt as though I'd wasted my life because there's nothing to show for it. I leave, you leave the military with, I was in the artillery, I go to a job centre and say, "What do you want to do? What can you do?" Fucking kill people from a long way away. That's not going to help me build a wall or get a job. So you haven't got the trade, you haven't got the help. And that's again going back to the transition from the military. I don't think the military helps enough. It doesn't plan. It doesn't help people, plan to buy a house or get them into housing or whatever like that. And it's annoying when I think back at it. What I went through was basically, it was turn up, fucking listen. This is how you write a CV, which is bollocks as well. And this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do, and that's it. Bye bye. Tick the box. He turned up here. I'm getting paid. I taught him something that he didn't know. And people with on them courses, like I watched them, and they didn't want to be there because they weren't getting engaged. They weren't getting told. Some of them were only young lads had only done like 3 to 5 years, and they'd had enough, and they wanted to get out, and they just wanted to go. They should have been fucking grabbed hold of and said, "Sit down and listen. This is, you're going to go out there, and you haven't got a fucking clue what's going to happen." When we call it, we all say it like living behind the wire. The first night we lived out of the wire, we were in the house we're moving into, and 2 police cars went past it, attending an incident just up the road, a couple of hours up the road. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? Police, because I'd never seen them. All the time we were married in the army, you're in the quarters, you don't see police cars flying about. I'm used to it now, but then it was like a fucking big eye opener. It was like a shock almost. I was like, what the fuck's going on here? And I wasn't prepared for Civvy Street. The army hadn't made me prepared for being a civvy, basically. You should go, it should last a lot longer, that transition of coming out, and there should be more information fed into you. But the people in the army aren't interested in you. And I'll say that because the last job I did, I was working with the career management. So the regimental career management officer, he had an assistant. He had a bitch who put the kettle on, done the typing. That was me, and I did a bit more than that, but not much. And we used to have guys coming in doing resettlement and all that. And I'm guilty. I'm sitting there thinking, fuck you. You're getting out. Who's interested in you? And that's the way the army is. I don't know about the other services or the regiments that I was in. I've seen that many, many times. People have either signed off and the regiment just lost interest in them. They weren't fucking interested in them. Go and do a shit job over there. Not bothered about you. You'll be gone in 2 days, or you'll be gone in 12 months, or you'll be gone in 6 months, and we won't have to worry about you again. And you could turn around and say, well, that's the same in any job. You're working for Tesco's, and you leave Tesco's and go to another job, and fine, Tesco's aren't going to ring you up and say, how are you doing, mate? Are you all right? Are you settled in your new job and stuff like that? Then fair enough. But being in the military is not like working in Tesco's. It's not like being, a fucking road sweeper or whatever. It's like being in the police. It's a way of life. It's a total way of life. And when you all of a sudden move from one to the other, it's a big fucking step for people. And a lot of people can't handle it. But we're not prepared for it, really. I don't think we are anyway.
Yeah, I think I wish people had kind of said whilst we're in the service, don't expect anything from your resettlement.
No.
Don't expect anything. Like, let you look after yourselves. That's the biggest advice I'll give people. When you decide to leave and you press that 9 steps on JPA, whatever it is, and you've said, I'm leaving, and it's been accepted, from that moment, I would really step back from everything. And it's very hard as a pilot to step back. They won't let you step back. You've got all these qualifications. You fly to the end. But I think stepping back and looking outside, because I remember one of the guys, I get attacked on social the whole time for things I say. And one of the guys said, well, if you left the service and it was bad for you, then you obviously messed up how you transitioned. You should have prioritized your own time. The guy's not wrong, but the guy wasn't a pilot. The guy wasn't a fast jet pilot teaching students on airplanes. You can't just stop. You've got qualifications. So you fly until pretty much the end. If you're lucky and you're in a ground tour, that's different because you can, do the class you should do. When you're flying, you've got to keep currencies up. So you've got to be requalifying every time until eventually you stop flying, which is why I tried to stop flying earlier so I could do that. And then they kept me flying. But I just think if someone said, don't think anything about your resettlement, I wouldn't even bother. Like literally, if there was a way of withdrawing people from their active service, like maybe with a month or 2 to go, so that they could do these courses or take some downtime. And if we could just try and lower people's expectations of what that resettlement's going to be. If you could say to people, it's shit, don't expect it to be good, it's bollocks, don't do it. I wouldn't. I mean, the senior officers have a very different resettlement to what normal officers or senior NCOs or junior NCOs have. It's the higher ranks. They have a very, very, very different one. And I just think we need to tell people not to just go to these sessions to get out of work if you want to, go on a road trip and go and learn about how to buy a house, whatever. But there's no value in it. And the only strength you're going to get is from the work you do on yourself. And don't expect too much. And also, I went out, I remember, and I'll leave you this, I've told this story before, I was getting this pain across the chest when I'd left after about 6 months, really intense. And my uncle had a heart attack about mid-50s, and he died from it. A big rugby playing dude, lovely bloke, Tom. And I was sitting at the desk one day, and it'd been going on for 6 months. As a man, I've been looking up heart rate. My heart rate was elevated. My blood pressure was elevated, bit of stress, drinking, all that kind of stuff. And then it went down my left arm this one day, and it just was so intense. And you'd hear about this left arm thing, heart attacks. I was 45, and I thought 46. I think I'm having a heart attack. So I drove to Hereford A&E, like you do, sensible, isn't it? Think you have a heart attack, get in the car.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'm having a heart attack. If I'm having a heart attack, can I just sit here, please? And they all bemused, went, sit there. And eventually some young girl came out, had a word, got the doctor, he bring me up to the machine. And he said, lovely bloke, actually, an Iranian guy, really, really nice dude, carrying a bit of weight and everything. He said, look, mate, you're not having a heart attack. What's going on? And I told him I left the military 6 months ago, didn't have any work on, didn't know what this world was about. And he explained it. He said, because obviously up at Hereford, all the 22 SS guys are up there, and he's seen loads of them. He said, the issue is, he said, right, for you, in your cockpit, at low level, in the dark, in Scotland, whatever, flying around the valleys, that's normality to you. That you can deal with that because that's what you know. Out here in civilian world, where no one fucking does what they tell you, and worse, they tell you they're going to do what you tell them, and then they just don't bother doing it. Fucking mentality is that. That's the truth. They go, yeah, definitely, I'll have it for you. Yeah, Monday morning, I couldn't do it because the dog ate my homework. But you would never fucking accept in the military. For some reason, that's the norm out here. He said, this is chaos. He says, this world out here to you is chaos. He said, in your cockpit, to me, as an Iranian heart specialist, whatever, that is chaos. I wouldn't know what I was doing. Everyone would freeze. I wouldn't know what it was. Like, they'd just die instantly because the cockpit, weird. But they work out in this chaos quite well because it's the normality. For you, it's the reverse. And that pretty much cured it straight away. I was like, right, I'm in chaos now. That's what my body... And if someone had told me before, like your brain will react to this, I would never have believed them. I wouldn't have believed them. Like, that's something that was a non-physical, like, it's just the world, but it's having this massive effect on me. It's raising my blood pressure. It's creating this panic attack that's lasting months. Anxiety attacks lasting months. I'd never have believed them, but that's what it was. And when he explained it to me, it got better over the next few weeks. It just went away completely. All the pain in the body went away. The body knows somehow. The body's keeping that score. There's a book out on it, isn't there? The body keeps a score. So that's the thing I tell people is, like, you just, you're in this place that's very different, but it will become the normality. And for me, it has become normality. Now, I don't expect too much out of people. And I'm really blended with it now. I'm like, someone will ask me, hey, Tim, like you, when can we do this podcast? Fucking whenever, mate.
Yeah.
No, I can't do it on Friday. I don't care. We'll do it whenever. Yeah. I used to not be like that. I used to say, the same thing.
Yeah.
We're doing it 7 o'clock. I'll be there 1 second before. I bought a fucking watch that doesn't keep the time properly. It's a fucking Rolex. It's shit at keeping time. I fucking bought it because it's shit at keeping time. So for me, I've got this watch now. I set it off the time. Like, I say to someone, what's the time? Oh, most people will go, oh, yeah, it's 19:03 and 15, 16, 17. I'm now like, shut up. What is it? 7:05. I'll set it to fucking 7:05. You know what I mean? So it's going to be off by a few minutes because that's the life I'm in now. Not in the school. I'm not in the school to the second. But here, I can't work. I can't work to exacting time. Remember, we used to launch operations to the second. I used to bomb drop plus or minus 3 seconds. That's what it was. After flying for an hour and a half, the bomb would hit the ground plus or minus 3 seconds. Hopefully, narrower than that. But that doesn't work out here. And if you try and bring your military experience of that kind of precision out into this chaos world, you will be bashing your head against the fucking brick wall for months and months, and you'll end up having a fucking heart attack like I almost had. So you've got to. This is I would be awesome at giving resettlement. I'd be the best person ever. I'd be like, right, fuck this shit right off. Listen to me. This is bullshit out here, guys. This is chaos land. It'd be great. Everyone would be like, oh, PTSD's gone away because Tim said it was shit, and he's right. Yeah, it's just a different world, and you've got to embrace it, and I quite like it. I like the, I don't know what it is. It's a good, you can ask people. It's the randomness of it. And what is life? Randomness is comedy as well. I mean, when shit goes wrong, I kind of laugh at it. I'm like, if this happened in the military, the debrief would be brutal. Like, you know what I mean? It would go on for days, people getting like beasted. Out here, just fucking laugh at it. I kind of expect it. I literally came out, I ran a rowing club for 5 years when I first came out of the military. So, which was a stupid thing to do. But I used to run it to the second, and I was going, eventually when I almost had my heart attack type thing, I just chilled the fuck out. We had meetings whenever. I turned up late sometimes, intentionally, and no one else was there anyway. So I'd rock up. I'm going to walk in 7 minutes late, and I'm going to cope with the trauma of being 7 minutes late. I know I am 7 minutes late. I'm doing it on purpose. Walk in there. I'm the first person there. So, you know what I mean? I'm the first person there anyway, because people are leaving later than me being late. And that allowed me to kind of adjust to civilian life in a way. And there's nothing wrong with it. It just is what it is. It's his own creation. And you know what? If we want to bring military life into civilian life, it would be very repressive. It would be a very hard existence. The support structures aren't like it. So I'm happy not to do that. Guys, in my school, we're literally to the second, because for those 2 hours that I'm teaching every day, or 4 hours sometimes, they want that. And that's what they get. But the rest of the time, if you want to phone me up, The phone can ring now. I'm not picking it up. I might sometimes pick it up, but I don't need to. You send me an email, I'll answer you in a couple of days' time. It's just how it is now. I live that life. I'm not proud of it, but it helps me exist. Does that make sense? It helps me
I
exist
get it. Bang on.
without
One of the
trauma.
lads I interviewed recently, the main crux of he left the army, started his own business as a locksmith, and he had a nervous breakdown for various things. Was he going to be able to do this? Blah, blah, blah. And he didn't have that support structure behind him because obviously he was on his own. So he couldn't go back and see someone, But he after he got all his counselling, he got, he's on medication and stuff like that, bless him. But his main trigger was timekeeping.
Yeah.
He couldn't handle people not, if they said, I want to be there at 10 o'clock, he's there at 10 to, as we all used to be. I start work at 9 o'clock. I'm in work at 22.
Yeah, of course.
Just in case anything happens. But,
people still walking late, aren't they? And you're like, who are these people? Who are these people?
Yeah. Fucking, but with him, it was a real trigger for him. And it took him a long time to go, right, hang on. If they're 10 minutes late, all right, fine. No one's going to fucking die. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
That mindset should be told you at resettlement. Like, just set your watch to a random time because it doesn't mean nothing.
Yeah. Time is relative, isn't it?
It doesn't matter whether it's a minute or two fast or a minute too slow. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Like, walk in late to a meeting and apologise. I think all of us in resettlement from the military should be made, like as one of those like skits they do, one of those role plays, to go in somewhere intentionally at the wrong time, to realise it doesn't really matter. You can apologise. I'm sorry, was I supposed to be here? I'm a couple minutes late, I'm sorry. And people go, it doesn't matter, don't worry about it. Next time, maybe be on time. And be like, right, okay, cool, I will. But it doesn't matter. Like, nothing explodes. In the military, often people die.
Yeah.
If you're seconds late in the military, people just lose their lives, and it makes you less combat effective, and therefore you're more likely to die, and therefore people behind you are more likely to die. And then everyone's going to get lost, and then we're going to be overrun by Russians and everything else. In Civvy Street, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that, So I just wish someone had told me that you don't have to keep these. I mean, personal standards is another one. How we look after ourselves and upkeep ourselves. Other people don't necessarily do that. We've got to be used to that. We've got to be happy with that. It's just a different world. But that's never told to us when we leave. No. And I struggled with that a lot. I struggle with the way that, I was a standards officer, right? So I struggle with the way that people uphold standards, the way people talk to each other, like on the internet, on a conversation, the way they use profanity in a conversation, thinking that they call people names, thinking, and they're anonymous as well, calling people names. And I'm like, why am I speaking to you? I'm Tim Davies on everything. You can see who I am. You can see what my business, people come after my business all the time. They write to the CEO of Shadowlands, CEO of Fast Jet Performance. Tim Davies is a Putin apologist, whatever it might be, the latest slur. They're writing to me and they're writing to my little PA, Katie, and she just says, there's another guy trying to get you cancelled. But it is what it is. People, it's a strange world. You've got to look at people out here. Some people can't hold two views in their head. Some people work in binaries. There's either, let's classic binary, Putin is bad, America is good. Classic binary, all right? There's no nuance, no shade of greys. People don't like the shade of grey. It makes them feel uncomfortable. They like to live in a binary of zeros and ones. I understand that. I'm different. However, I recognise, like, one of these people I argue with consistently and I talk about a lot is my sister, my older sister. She's very binary. Everything to her is either, if she's a bit left, you say Palestine must free Palestine and Israel is bad. Fuck trees. We can get together a little bit and we can sort of massage our opinions here and we can learn from each other. No, we can't, because fucking this is this and this is. There's no shade. Whereas in the military, like I told you, we haven't met before at all. We can have a conversation and we disagree on a lot. I'm sure we do, but no one's nasty to each other. We're actually trying to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I just want to come out and I found that difficult, that you wouldn't know when you were talking to someone whether that was going to be a possibility. You wouldn't know the people out here whether they were going to put a complaint in against you. I saw something the other day where in a private WhatsApp group on British Airways, people were talking and they said they were fat shaming a woman, a stewardess, or something like that. And these two guys are getting sacked or something, and the woman wasn't even in the group. So they're getting sacked for bullying a woman that wasn't even in the group. This shit happens out here. I can't even understand it. How on earth are you getting sacked for bullying someone that wasn't even there when you were bullying her? How does that? But this is a different world to us. In the military, we'd be sat down in a room. What have you done? What have you done? What do you think? What? You've been a dick, mate. What you been? I'm being a dick, sorry. You have a few beers with each other, have a bit of a scrap, you're done. It doesn't work like that out here. And we've got to embrace that, because this is the new normal now. We're never getting the old school back. It is what it is. We've got to transition through it, and you've got to do the work. There's work to be done, and that work, I think, is found a lot of the time in just trying to treat yourself like someone you should be caring for, which isn't easy. It's not easy, but we know what we should be doing. We should try and eat a little bit healthily. We should try and get to sleep at the right. I'm the worst person to sleep ever. Try and set yourself get yourself out of bedtime. Try and not watch rubbish stuff on the internet if you can. But yeah, that's how I look at it.
It's hard. Yeah, but you're right. You know what? You've fucking made me think. You really have. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I wanted you to come on.
It's a conversation for both of us, isn't it? So I've learned things from you today. So thank you for having me on. I do appreciate it. And I'll be really frustrated when your bloody podcast overtakes my YouTube channel, actually. So
I fucking doubt that.
Have a think about that. I'll do everything to stop it, by the way, now.
Yeah, that's right.
Frankie,
right, well, don't
listen to his podcast. He's rubbish.
He's shit. He's half Geordie. No one can understand what he's saying.
Exactly. He's northern. Yeah, don't listen to that northern.
Right, well, I'd like to say thanks for coming on. I've really enjoyed it, and I've learnt a lot, and it's made me think. And I hope anyone who's listened to this, look up Tim on YouTube. I'll put links in the show notes as well for his channel. He's got some very insightful videos on there which basically I watched one and it made me want to get him on the show, and I'm so chuffed that you've agreed and came on. I'd just like to really say thank you, and good luck with your flight school that you do, and good luck with your YouTube channel, and good luck to you as well.
Yeah, it's very kind. Thank you for having me on, and thank you to your audience for tolerating our conversation today.
Yeah, I think that they should enjoy it. Right, I'll just end the recording now.